In the previous video, we made significant progress in our playthrough. We made some aesthetic upgrades to our blacksmith, and added several new features to our portal hub, including a central plinth lit up nicely by a glowing magic well in the middle. We also defeated bone mass, and so began venturing into the mountains, delving into several frost caves. We upgraded our armor and weaponry with silver, wolf hides, fangs, and Fenris hair that we had acquired through our explorations, but were still on the lookout for Drake trophies to complete our new armor set. We also placed 2 of the 3 required dragon eggs needed to summon the Forsaken Moda, a dragon that resides within the mountain biome, and which would be our next step before we'd go about constructing some new buildings within our settlement. And so, in search of drakes, we returned once again to the mountain biome, with the primary goal of collecting drake trophies. After a bit of drake hunting, we passed the frost cave we had previously visited, where we had found the large frozen cavern protected by a stone golem. Deciding to go back and see what was lurking in the depths, we came across the legendary lost fishing rod of Valheim, and then engaged in battle with the golem, quickly bringing about its demise, before realizing that there was little else here except the fishing apparatus, and so quickly headed out back to our hunt for drakes. It had, however, turned night as we were spelunking, and so, after tangling up in a close battle with a werewolf-like Fenring, we headed back home, where we set about crafting a new bow, the Draugafang, a poison-enchanted weapon which we'd make good use of in our ongoing search for drake trophies, as well as our eventual battle with Moda the dragon. And so, we headed back to the mountain, and continued what seemed like an endless search for the elusive trophy we so desperately desired, hunting drake after drake, while fighting off the occasional pack of bloodthirsty wolves, and even less frequently, some mystical stone golems. Almost 2 days had passed before we were eventually granted our first drake trophy, and we rushed home in the night, only to find out that we needed 2 of these rare objects to make the drake helmet we were after. After a spot of farming to keep on top of our crops, and replenishing our food supplies, we ventured back to the mountains, and slew a countless number of drakes. Another day later, we had secured our second trophy, and fumbling through an evening blizzard, we portaled home, quickly dispatched of a random intruder in the settlement, and got about crafting the final piece of our armour, the drake helmet. It was time to retire our trusty troll leather armour, which had proved so versatile in cloaking our movements to nearby foes, yet providing adequate toughness against the monsters of Valheim up until this point. Brandishing our wolf fang spear and our silver-laden wolf and Fenris armour, we were all but ready for our upcoming battle with Moda. We rested through the night, warm in our wolf hides with a fire below our feet, and set off at dawn, feeling invigorated and ready to banish the dragon from this world. We portaled back to the foot of the mountain, climbing the snowy slopes one final time before grabbing a nearby dragon egg to complete the required set of 3. And as the sun rose into the mountains, we summoned the almighty beast. The battle with Moda was a long and atrocious one. The dragon endured well over 100 obsidian-tipped arrows sinking into its tough scales, and several toe-to-toe encounters. But, through blazes of frost, hailstorms of ice shards, and ferocious swipes, I had outlasted the creature, and through a final flurry of combat, Moda's being was removed from this world, leaving behind nothing more than its head as a trophy, and contained essence of its anger and sorrow. And so, we were once more back at the Standing Stones, reflecting on our continued progress and our challenging but enthralling duel with the mighty dragon Moda. Our attention would soon turn towards our next Forsaken, Yagluth, the undead king of the plains biome, as there would be our next destination to explore. We made the short journey back home to our settlement, and spent some more time farming, continuing to bolster our vegetable supplies, before making use of the dragon tears dropped by Moda to craft a new artisan table, spinning wheel, and blast furnace, which would all become useful from the items dropped from the monsters of the plains. The design of this crafting area once again echoes the rest of the settlement, with sweeping wooden beams and brutalist stone flooring surrounding a contrasting fire for keeping us warm in those cold nights, against the backdrop of the blue torches and blue highlights of the crafting table for that magical effect. The settlement had reached an impressive span, covering a significant amount of land and carrying elements of the early stages of the game through the farming, berry bushes and beehives, right through towards the end of the game, which we were progressing closer and closer to. We had also built the foundations of a fishing and boat dock, but we'd be expanding upon this at a later stage, as I was keen to head back out into the plains for more adventuring. Planning our next location to dive into the plains, we'd decided to head back to the island where Moda was located, as we'd seen expansive plains biomes surrounding the mountain. Heading round the northern coast of the fairly small island, we quickly found ourselves on the edge of the plains, and immediately brought down one of the many enemies that would plague these lands, a Fuling, a little green goblin-like creature. As we collected the black metal scrap, a new type of ore that was dropped by the Fuling, 2 death skeetos descended upon us, but we made fairly short work of them, sustaining only a minor blow. We found ourselves in the shadow of a large Fuling outpost, where we handily began dispatching of Fulings and death skeetos alike from a distance. This technique would prove the most effective and safe approach in the plains. Before heading into the tower, we also stumbled upon a new type of berry, cloudberries, a stamina-focused food unlocking a medium stamina base for potions, as well as recipe options through further cauldron upgrades. As we cut through the fueling in the tower, making use of our high damage and swift wolf spear, we soon realised that beyond the loot dropped by the goblins, there was nothing of interest to be found, though we knew that these locations could hold chests of loot and the items required to summon Yagluth. And so we pressed on, collecting more cloudberries on our travels, and soon enough finding ourselves confronted by a Fuling Settlement, one much more primitive and miniature than our own back in the safety of the meadows. We began luring out and picking off Fuling using ranged attacks, switching to our trusty spear if they got within close range. After killing several of the goblins, a shaman emerged, summoning a protective sphere, but with no Fuling kin by his side to protect, his ability was almost useless and quickly fell to my volley of arrows. Dispatching the final Fuling left an empty settlement for us to loot, and after stripping the farms of flax, which we could spin into spools of thread for the next tier of armour, we cleared out the last of the chests, and found a few sprigs of barley, the next food component, which would bring baking into our cooking repertoire. We had already amassed more black metal scrap than we could carry, so we stored what we needed and made the short trip back to our portal house to drop off our loot, before heading back out to the settlement to collect the remaining scrap, before pressing on further into the plains to scout for more locations. With the evening rolling in, we came across another settlement, making sure to mark it on our map, as well as a tar pit, which would unlock more advanced building options if we managed to extract it. As we tracked back the path we had previously come, we were intercepted by 3 locks, giant furry mammals who often grazed within the plains in small groups. One naturally wandered from the pack, and so we took a chance and began launching arrows at it from a distance. We then picked our moment, drawing out the second beast, and rushed it with our spear while it was panicking from the poison damage from our Draugr Fang. The third lox also fell after we landed some critical hits on it, rapidly piercing its hide with several stabs from our Wolf Fang spear. Full of loot, we headed home, avoiding much more combat as our rested buff had run out, and portaling back, we loaded up our spinning wheel with as much flax as we could, and began to smelt black metal scrap. With thread and black metal now at our disposal, we'd unlocked the next tier of weaponry, tools and armour, as well as some extra items of interest, like a lock saddle and a new cauldron upgrade. We continued to smelt until noon, when we decided to head back to the plains, but this time heading along the southern coast, which turned out to be a much emptier and thinner piece of land, with the wreckage from a previous explorer being the only point of interest. We eventually came across another fueling tower, which again had no loot or totems to collect, and after a short battle with the rogue locks, we pressed on and found a nearby village as night began to descend. We went about picking off its inhabitants without much trouble, and, as we stripped the place of its loot, we found our first totem. After emptying the farms of flax and barley, we stored the heavy metal scraps using a nearby chest, and ran the loot back to our portal outpost, eventually winding up back home, collecting up our processed thread, continuing our smelting, and making use of our black metal in creating the pots and pans upgrade for the cauldron. We brewed some fire-resistant mead, and quickly got stopped in our tracks trying to build a windmill for flour processing, as we'd run out of iron nails, which meant one thing: a quick visit back to the swamps to stock ourselves up. On our way back home with a backpack full of iron scraps, we brought down an abomination and had a tangle with a 2-star troll, though neither of these monsters caused us any trouble with our current equipment and food recipes. Before we knew it, we were back home smelting our iron and crafting nails ready for a windmill. We constructed a basic stone plinth to give it a bit of extra height, and placed the windmill atop. I then thought I'd optimise a small plot of land next to it by cornering off a small vegetable farm, given we'd realistically not be able to house anything else here. We loaded up the windmill with all the barley we had, and then used the rest of our restocked iron to make a stone oven ready for baking, though we'd have to wait for more barley to process through the windmill. And so, I got busy working on the long-awaited dock for our settlement, kicking off with a basic lighthouse in the shape of a short beacon. As morning broke on day 101, we had officially hit 100 days within our settlement build series, and we spent the morning finally fishing to bolster our fish stock, ready for an upcoming recipe which required it. As we relaxed on the shore of our settlement, I couldn't help but reflect on what a journey the 100 days had been, and just how much we'd achieved in that time. Within the safety of the meadows biome, our settlement has flourished from a basic portal hub and a house to simply provide a warm shelter, to a self-sustaining fort complete with defences, farms, a blacksmith, storage house, our very own Viking hall, and now our windmill for flour production, a lighthouse to guide us on returning voyages, and dock to house our boats, and from which to spend our downtime fishing and relaxing. With still more of the game to explore, 3 Forsaken and 2 more biomes that I've not explored previously, we'll have to use our limited space wisely, expanding buildings as needed to accommodate new crafting tables, and making use of new building materials we unlock along the way. But for now, we'll enjoy living within this magnificent establishment that we've put together, and look forward to the future adventures, challenges, and epic battles we'll no doubt encounter in the coming videos of the series. Thanks as always for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Valheim content, as well as future episodes in this series, and be sure to like the video to support the channel. Until next time.